All right, we're going to do something totally crazy here today. Actually going to talk about long-term strategic planning, and we're going to do it randomly in March instead of January or December, which is when most people talk about that. My name is Megan Sumrell. I'm a time management expert for women, and I'm on a mission to bring work-life harmony into homes all over the world through all things time management, organization, and productivity. Every year in Q4, typically in October, I hold a massive live annual planning event. Some people don't hear about it until after it's over because maybe a friend told them about it. And then I start getting questions of, when are you going to do this again? Do I have to wait until next October? And I realized there's a real disconnect out there. And it's this: you do not need to have the start of a year or the start of a quarter or the start of a week to do any kind of planning. You can do strategic long-term planning anytime you want to. Here in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing 7 steps that you can use any time of the year, any time of the day, to create a strategic plan that is going to support you in getting longer term goals or projects done. All right. And the cool thing is, this is a tool that you can add into your planning and productivity tool belt to use anytime you want. If you are ready to really level up your expertise around controlling your calendar so it doesn't control you, make sure that you subscribe to the channel here so you do not miss any future training. Let's go ahead and jump in. Hey there, welcome to the Work-Life Harmony podcast. Now, when this episode first appeared here on the podcast, the date that this is dropped is in March of 2024. And the reason why I wanted to make sure you knew the date of this so you would understand a little bit more about the conversation that we're going to be having here today inside of the podcast. Once a year, I hold a live, what I call annual planning event. It's always in Q4, and I teach my process for doing 12-month annual planning for the upcoming year. But it's something I only teach live once a year. So I always start, hearing from people come January, February, etc., that have heard about the event. A friend has told them about it or shared something they've learned, and they reach out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, are you going to be doing this again soon?" And I really, because it's a annual planning event, I only just hold it once a year. But it made me realize that there's definitely a misconception out there, which is this: I think people feel like that long-term strategic planning is something that can only be done like from a January to December window. And that is absolutely not true. So what I want to do today is actually empower you and equip you with a 7-step process that you could do right now today if you're wanting to create a longer term strategic plan. All right. You don't have to wait until, I hold a live annual planning event to do that. Long-term planning does not have to fall under any set calendar time frame. If you are brand new to longer term planning, you're like, I really want to create a longer term plan. Maybe it's for the rest of this year. Maybe it's for the next 6 months. I want to give you 7 steps that's going to help you do that. Step 1 is this: how far out do you want to plan? You need to figure out kind of what time box window are you looking at for your plan. For the steps I'm going to give you, I personally would recommend that you're doing it, somewhere around a 5 to 6 month and longer. So maybe you want to plan, at the time this drops again is March, maybe you're wanting to create a plan for the next 9 months of 2024. Maybe you're wanting to just do the next 6 months. The process I'm sharing here today is not what I use to do my weekly planning. Okay. This is more strategic, long-term, to help you get an actual roadmap in place of how am I going to get from here to there, and there is way out in the future. Realistically, what's possible, what's not. All right. So step 1 is deciding how far out do you want to plan. Our second step is this: you need to decide on the tool that you are going to use that gives you a higher level planning ability to capture your current commitments. What does all of that mean? I'm going to tell you. Maybe you use a paper planner today. All right. And it's a planner that has a weekly layout and it has months. Well, that's good, but what we're really looking for here is a tool that either on 1 or 2 pieces of paper, like if you're thinking of a notebook where you open it and there's 2 pieces of paper, right? We want to make sure that we have the entire timeline that you're planning for captured there. I'll show you what I use. If you're watching the video here, you'll be able to see it. I have a page that fits into my top planner that comes with my Planapalooza inserts. And I have one page for all of 2024, and it's broken up in identically sized squares representing the 12 months of the year. So this doesn't need to be dated. You just want to make sure that you have a tool that's going to allow you to capture your current commitments for the time frame that you are wanting to plan. And then the second step, the second part of this step is you need to go look at the realities of now to your end date. And I'm just going to say December 31st because that's easy to say. And I want you to flip through where you currently capture things you've already said yes to that are large, right? Trips you're taking, maybe a conference that you are going to, maybe the entire summer break for school, if that changes the way your life works. And you're actually going to write those down into the place that you are capturing that information. What we're ultimately after here with step 1 and 2 is that you have something that visually is showing you what time commitments have you already made between now and your end date. Think of it and I use money analogies a lot. Think about it in terms of a budget, right? Well, you have the ability to track what are all the bills and payments that you know about that you're going to need to spend money on for the rest of the year. Maybe you know what your salary is coming in. Well, you can do the math to say, here's how much money is left over. That's what we're after here for these longer term projects. How much time, what do I really have available for me? Once we've captured that, notice we haven't even gotten to the point yet of what is it you want to do, because first we need to understand what's even available to me. All right. Like when I look at my longer term plans, I can kind of see the month of June is pretty much like done for. I don't want to plan on doing anything new in June. I don't want to say yes to anything big in June. The realities of my life, trips, school schedules, all of that, I'm done. Here we are in March, and I already know anything big that comes across, my path for June, I'm gonna have to say, nope, not gonna work. So now on to step 3. Now we get to sit and say, okay, what do I want to accomplish? What are the things at this end date? So maybe December 31st, the larger things, the things that are going to take me several weeks and or months to complete. What is it ideally I'd like to accomplish? When I run my annual planning event, there's a lot of steps that we go through to help uncover those. But if you're listening to this because you're wanting to learn, how do I get a longer term plan in place? Chances are you've already got a few projects in your head that you're thinking of that you'd really like to get done. You don't need to overthink it. Just what is on the top of your mind that I really want to go ahead and have this done. All right. And write that down, jot that down. And you might have 2 things, you might have 7 things. Who knows? Only you know what that's going to be. Step 4 is this. We're now going to look at the big projects that you've just thought about, and you're going to go back to that visual tool that you've given yourself. And you need to start thinking about, okay, what are some little interim milestones that I might want to hit along the way for this longer term project? Now, let me give you an example, just because I know I hear this a lot. Folks sometimes set a goal of wanting to declutter their home in the course of a year. So maybe it's March and you're like, all right, I really want to declutter my home by the end of the year. Well, when we go look at the tool where you've written down your months from, maybe April through the end of December and your current commitments of everything that you have going on, well, now what you can do is start setting little kind of mini steps along the way. So you might decide that in the month of July, maybe you write down on that July block that you're going to, like the kitchen is the big thing that you want to work on that particular month. So you might write in declutter kitchen. Maybe you see that June is completely booked like mine is, and you realize I'm probably not going to make any progress there. But you look ahead to August and maybe you say, okay, in August is when I'm going to go ahead and tackle these 2 closets. I'm just making up some examples, but I want to get your wheels going here of what those milestones might look like. Maybe you want to write a book this year. And so you can break down little milestones of, I need to get, how many chapters do I want to have written, or how many pages, however you want to break it out for yourself. But now we actually need to write that in to that visual tool that we've just created to see, is this goal reasonable with what I've already committed to for the year? When you go through that step 4 of trying to create realistic milestones, you might discover, gosh, getting this done by December 31st probably isn't going to happen. I might need to bring it all the way into next March. And that's okay. Wouldn't you rather step into this knowing that your goal is actually going to change a little bit on how much you're going to get done in December, but you know that it's realistic? That's what it's all about. Step 5 is the really important one. And now you need to think about what activities specifically are going to get you there. Not, oh, I'll just declare, like, no, what specific activities? The actual steps that you're going to take, like writing a book. What would those specific activities might be? Well, I need to get an outline for the book. I need to come up with a title for the book. I need to write, maybe you're feeling it's a 12 chapter book. I need to write chapter 1, chapter 2. I need to edit the book, right? So the actual activities that you have control over, we need to write those down. Okay, that's step 5. Step 6 is getting those into your more shorter time frame plans. And for me, that means weekly planning. So it means that I'm going to have a list of activities that I know I need to do to help me get there. And now I'm going to make sure when I'm doing my weekly planning that I see time on my calendar blocked out for those specific activities. This is where the rubber meets the road, friends, because a lot of people are really good at setting goals. A lot of people are really good at breaking down big projects. A lot of people are really good at setting those milestones, and they're really good at even writing down, okay, here's everything I got to do to get there. But if you then don't go into where, the tool that you're using, whether it's a Google Calendar, iCal, a paper planner, whatever it may be, if you don't go in there and actually block off the time in your calendar to do those activities, what you're going to end up with is a gorgeous plan and a to-do list that never gets into motion. This is why step 6 is so important. Now, I mentioned there's 7 steps, and the 7th step is this. You need to check in regularly. This tool that you're building, where you're going to be mapping out, what your strategic goals are and how you're going to get there, needs to be in a place that you see it often. I keep mine in the very front page of my planner. Anytime something comes across my desk, or I'm thinking about doing something and I'm trying to decide when, I go look at that to see, what am I already committed to? What have I created as my plan? If I say yes to this, am I going to be overbooked? If I say yes to this at that time, is that not good? And maybe I need to pick a different time. So it needs to be, this isn't something you create and put on the shelf. It needs to be something that you revisit. So let's recap those 7 steps. Number 1, how far out do you want to plan? Number 2, creating your visual aid, if you will, that's going to show you from here until then on 1 or 2 pieces of paper, and then plug in what you've already said yes to. Right? What are the withdrawals of your time that are already spoken for? Step 3, at this end date, what is it you want to accomplish? What is that strategic plan that you're trying to hit? Step 4, now, how do we break this down into realistic milestones and add those in to your visual tool? Step 5 is when we're going to brainstorm the specific activities on how to get there. Step 6 is now actually putting the time into your calendar to protect it and preserve it to do that. And then finally, number 7 is you need to go back and look at this thing often. This should be something you're looking at regularly. I'm going to be honest. What I just shared with you all here today is, if you are brand new to planning, this might feel very new and very different for you. We go through these steps, but we add in a bunch more, and we do a lot of detail on that whenever I teach very strategic long-term annual planning. But what I've shared here today is something you can 100% go out and implement now. And it's going to help you have an honest relationship with your time, and it's going to prevent you from 2 things. It's going to prevent you from overbooking, overcommitting, and setting unrealistic goals. And it's also going to protect the time that you desire to achieve the goals once you see, yeah, I can do this year, so that you get to say yes to things that serve you better, and you get to say no to things that aren't in support of that strategic plan. As always, you are the author of your plans, which means you get to change them when you need to. I have created many annual plans in my life, and never have they played out exactly as I had planned them when I'm doing 12 months, right? Things shift and change over the course of the year. But when you have these tools in place, it allows you to replan. It allows you to make changes, and it continues to serve you in a very, very supportive way. I hope you have enjoyed this. If you are brand new again to planning, I do have a podcast series out there you may want to go check out. It was a 4-part series that I ran towards the end of 2023 called The 4 Levels of Planning. And in there, I break down the difference between weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual planning. So what I've been sharing here today are things that we typically do that we see in annual planning, a little bit in quarterly planning, but it is, again, more geared towards that longer term planning. Don't feel like you need to wait till the end of this year to go ahead and create a long-term strategic plan. With these tools, you can do it at any time.